See. Okay. Hi.
Hello, do you have me okay?
Yes. Okay. I was thinking I'd do this out in the meeting room, but I'm afraid we might have customers come in and uh, disturb us. So I'm back here in the office, which is not such, I still have books behind me,
I was gonna say, I like all the books. That's the perfect background. My
but
bookshelves are that way, so I like the wall behind me. I should have planned that better. I didn't realize we'd be doing all these virtual events.
yeah, okay, let me, first of all, I need to set up, oh, there's some chat. Okay, I wanted to type in the links to your website and his website and
Perfect. I'm not good with Zoom, so I'm trying to figure out here.
that's okay.
I want to be able to see the chat, right? So because we're getting questions from the
All right,
audience.
let me see. Okay, this is long. I should have done a tiny URL for it.
Well, as long as people can click it, they won't care how long it is, right?
Science fiction, fantasy. This is really long.
Oh no.
Okay. Or
I'm trying to get enough light on myself. It's late enough in the day here that losing the sun.
okay. That's that one now. Now, is it okay if I refer to you as Lisa during?
Yes, that's just fine.
Okay, all right, because I came across an interview of you and it was something like you go by SL Huang for privacy reasons. I didn't want.
Oh, yeah. No. That's totally fine. I just I don't. SL Huang isn't my like legal name. But Lisa is totally fine. That's what I go by publicly. I think we might be missing a V in that link.
We're missing a V.
Virtual author event.
Whoops.
Yeah.
No, it says it.
Clicking, and it didn't. It gave me a 404 error.
It showed in the chat room.
In the chat, the last word event I'm seeing is E.
Oh, you're right. How do I? Oh no! What did I just do? I clicked on it and it. Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, with the V it works. Oh, that's beautiful. What a great bookshelf link.
Hold on. Okay. How do I edit? How do I?
I wish I could help you. I am not good.
Let me see if can I copy? Yeah, I'll copy. Come on. Copy. Okay. Let me go back here. Gee.
Technology's not too hard, is it? I'm just wrestling with it all day, it feels like.
All right, there we go. I wish there was a way to get rid of that.
I have no idea.
We'll just tell him, ignore the first one. Okay, okay. I'm just gonna put your, okay, www.sl. Oh, I don't think so.
That's correct. Maybe it didn't link because without the HTTPS or something.
Yeah,
Wow. They don't make it too hard, geez.
no. There. Need to, I don't know how they can, all right. His HTTPS. Okay, and I'll just put the Book Bungalows in case anyone has it.
Absolutely. We want to have this event supporting you guys. Like, we are so, all of us authors are so, wanting to support indie bookstores, and we're so worried about you all in this time of pandemic. So we're hoping, that this can be a support to you as well.
I appreciate that. Yoon, are you there? Not hearing him.
Yoon, you're muted if you can hear us. Hello? I think we got you now.
Hello?
Hello!
Okay.
Also a cat.
Hello, cat!
Hello, Tanya. Pleased to meet you.
Good to meet you. That was, oh, and your cat. What's your cat's name?
Cloud.
Cloud. Beautiful.
Excellent cat name.
I was just putting some links at your websites and the buy books site, which the first one's wrong, but I don't know how to erase it.
Technology has been stymieing us because nothing is ever easy.
Okay.
You know, on Star Trek, things only go wrong when it's convenient to the plot. They never have, like, random glitches.
Or like, oh, I copy and pasted the wrong thing that, now the whole Enterprise is going to blow up. That should be a plot. I should write for Star Trek right there.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm not letting people in yet because it's not 4. Okay. Have you done something like this on Zoom before?
Not really.
Not like this. I've done a signing and some other like sort of similar events over Zoom in the past few weeks, but not this particular setup.
All right. You notice that when someone starts talking, I'm sorry, it's not doing it.
You want me to talk and yeah, it switches to me, right?
No, I'm saying usually when someone starts talking, the focus.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
He's getting that now. How come I'm not getting that? That's fine. I don't mind not being seen.
No, I see you. It's switching to you for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't see myself. That's it. Okay. So, my idea is that I'll welcome everyone. I'll just kind of quickly review that, I'm going to keep everyone else muted. Then after I introduce you, somebody did send in some questions in advance. Do you want me to shoot those out to you both to begin with, or let you talk for a while and then start with some questions?
Oh, I don't know. Would that help us get started if we have advanced questions? Wow.
It might.
Yeah, someone was very prepared.
Yes, it is. And they're all about beginnings. So you can be thinking about how you decide to begin your stories and novels.
Oh God, if I had a good answer to that.
I'm giving you some time here. If you want, I can feed you the questions right now. So you, let's see.
I have the chat up. The questions are going to come in the Zoom group chat, right? I have it open, and it
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be reasonable to like see that and see you and like be able to.
Yeah,
talk
I
to you.
don't want to interrupt much. If you'll kind of, when one of you's talking, if the other person will see if there's new questions or something,
Hmm.
we cover for each other.
Yeah. I think
These
we'll
are
do
the
it.
questions I'm going to ask you from Jennifer Willis. Number one, how do you approach the beginning of your novels? Number two, where in the process of writing and revision do you tackle when and how to write the best beginning for your story?
Oh goodness.
I feel like they're gonna cut it on pretty fast. That like it's like they think that I know what I'm doing, and I feel like that's
I
definitely
know,
something.
right?
Number three, do you have a consistent approach to novel beginnings, or does your approach vary based on the story?
I
And
wish I had a consistent approach.
Tell me about it. I want a repeatable algorithm, darn it.
I know, right?
Oh, are we a swear-free zone at the Book Bungalow, or
Oh, that's a
can we
good question.
curse?
yeah, well, I would appreciate it.
That's why I'm asking. Totally fine to keep it
I
clean.
better mention that because I have I haven't done anything like this. If
Yeah, no problem.
sci-fi and fantasy fans like to swear a lot.
Yeah.
Some of us do, but we like I'm totally fine with keeping it clean. That's why I asked. It's just
Yeah, ditto.
just to know either way.
Okay, all right. And the last is, what do you think makes a great starting point for a long story? It's all about beginnings. I think this person is struggling with how to start her particular work in progress. Anyway, I have some questions after that, but so I might ask those following hers, and then we'll leave it to everyone else unless you guys want to maybe between questions, you can pose questions to each other to bring out your backgrounds and your writing and your books and everything like that. Okay?
Cool.
All right. Okay. We got about 6 minutes to go.
Is my volume and stuff okay? Am I like?
Can you be a little louder?
Yes, I can. Let me get closer to the mic here. How's this? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see. And we got 10 people in the waiting room now. We had like 51 people sign up for this. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Awesome.
You get a lot of response on your Twitter, you were offering free cereal codes.
I got a fair number of retweets, but I haven't really looked at the number yet because I've just been busy with other stuff all day. So I will check that and see.
Okay. I have to say, you look so diminutive when I read about all of your fighting and your training and your armoring. I'm just thinking, whoa. It takes me aback a little bit.
Yes, I would walk on this set as the like small 5'2" woman with like 5 shotguns and demand respect. That's how my job would go.
I always expect the small Asian woman to be the crack shot because when I took riflery in college, the best shot in the class was a 5'0" Asian woman, 100 pounds soaking wet, and she dimed the target every time. And all the great white hunter dudes, like they were just taken completely aback that she outshot them. So I always expect the small Asian woman to be the crack shot.
Okay, what is it about you guys and your weapons and math? Is there a connection there?
I'm really well.
I don't think so. It's just, I like weapons. They're cool.
Agreed. There is a lot of like focus and meditation firearms, I feel like when you're doing it like paper targets,
Mhm.
it feels the same as like doing a math problem to me, that same sort of
Oh.
headspace.
Okay.
That explains Cass right there.
Um, did um, did you take fencing? Have you done?
I took fencing in college, and then I was doing it up until coronavirus hit. But I'm a novice fencer. I'm not very good.
I've only done one very introductory fencing class in college. I do more like performance sword play, so very different. I could not, if Yoon and I went up against each other, Yoon would kick my butt. It would be a very short fencing duel. But I'd look good while I got beat, you know. So when we go into the session, should we introduce each other? Were you planning to introduce us?
I was going
Introduce
to
ourselves?
introduce you. I was going to begin by welcoming everyone, and then kind of going over the rules, which would be don't unmute yourself and put all your questions in the chat, and no swearing.
Sounds good.
And then I was going to just read probably from the flyer. Was just going to read the same thing I wrote in the flyer
Okay.
to introduce you. And then I'll turn it over to you. Oh, no, then I'm going to start with my questions with the beginning questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'll do my questions, and then I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good to me.
We've got 17, 18 people in the waiting room. Okay. See waiting room. How can I see the way? 20 people.
Unfortunately, I cannot help
I'm
with any.
afraid to push the button. What if it lets them in? 59. Let me see the waiting room. Oh, there we go. Okay. 3 in meeting. Okay.
I think my sister's coming because she's such a big fan of your books, Yoon, and she gets to talk to me all the time, so that's not special. But she's like, I want to see you.
Okay. We're almost there. There's a button for admit all. There's 22 waiting. I told Lisa I'm back in my office. I do have bookshelves behind me, but it's not nearly as nice looking as the bookstore. But I didn't want to interrupt customers, take over a room.
You can't see the rest of my study, which is full of art supplies, books, and ball jointed dolls.
I strategically piled all the mess directly out of camera range, so it looks
yeah,
very neat behind me.
yeah.
Smart. Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to admit them all. You ready?
Go
Yep.
for it.
Okay. Welcome to the Book Bungalow, our virtual science fiction fantasy author event with S.L. Huang and Yoon Ha Lee.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are excited to welcome them today. I just want to read quickly a brief introduction. Well, first I want to go over Zoom rules for us. We want you to not to unmute yourself, okay? Put all your questions in the chat room, and we'll try and keep track of those as we go along, and we would appreciate no swearing if possible. I know that's hard for some to control, but where you can. And let me just read. S.L. Huang is a Hugo-nominated and Amazon best-selling author of the Cass Russell series from Tor Books, starting with Zero Sum Game, and has an upcoming fantasy, Burning Roses. A Hollywood stunt woman and firearms expert, she's appeared on shows such as Battlestar Galactica and Raising Hope. You can follow her online, and I've put the links at the top of the chat room box, the links where you can buy their books, and her website, and also Yoon Ha Lee's website, and our own Book Bungalow website. Lee's debut novel, Nine Fox Gambit, won the Locus Award and was a finalist for the Hugo, Nebula, and Clark Awards. Its sequels, Raven Stratagem and Revenant Gun, were also Hugo finalists. His middle grade space opera, Dragon Pearl, was a New York Times bestseller. As a Korean-American science fiction fantasy writer who received a BA in math from Cornell University and an MA in math education from Stanford, he finds it a source of delight that math can be mined for story ideas. And his website's also up there. I think both of them mine their math for story ideas. And before we turn it over to them, I'm going to ask one person who registered, sent her questions in advance. So I'm going to ask, this is from Jennifer Willis, and she's concerned all about beginnings, how you start out stories and novels. And so I'm going to ask Lisa the first two questions, and then I'll ask Yoon the last two questions, okay?
Okay, go right ahead.
Lisa, how do you approach the beginning of your novels?
With great difficulty. That beginnings are actually the easiest part. So when I say that, I'm being a little bit facetious, but it is very hard because what ends up happening to me is I have this idea and I have these characters and I start writing these characters in this situation. Usually I have like an image of a situation in my head that these characters are in. And then I have this like first chapter and then I don't know where to go with it. And I'm in writing, we have we have somebody in the chat saying they have a friend waiting to be let into the room. So
hello, yes.
But I tend to be what they call a pantser and not a plotter. So I don't know how the book is gonna go. So I'll hit that wall after like chapter 1 and then not know where to go on. So it appears to be part of my process that I have a graveyard of many, many chapter 1s that have never gone anywhere. And I wish that could not be part of my process because that's a lot of wasted words. So I don't necessarily recommend this. It just appears to be how I need to start books. And then the ones that go end up going, and then the ones that kind of peter out.
What do you do with those chapter 1s? Have you kept them or?
I've kept them. I try to mine them for other things later on or to make short stories out of or something. But yeah, it's I would like to be able to just write from the beginning and actually finish everything. That would be much more efficient.
Okay. The second question's related. Where in the process of writing and revision do you tackle when and how to write the best beginning for your story?
Pretty much always at the beginning. If the beginning's not working, the book isn't going to work for me. I rearrange many other parts of the books, but I almost never rewrite my beginnings. And that's just a quirk to me. I mean, I think a lot of writers write very differently. I know some writers who rewrite books wholesale and completely rewrite their beginning. Some writers often chop off their entire chapter 1. So I've heard every iteration of this. Many writers differ on this usually. So this is not necessarily advice. This is just what works for me. Is that if I can get the beginning solid, then that's like a prerequisite for me of being able to write the book, and they hardly ever change.
So you've never gone back and changed your beginning after?
I don't think there's a single book I have out or that's going to be out where I changed the beginning after writing, like significantly. You know, obviously there are line edits. I think they're all pretty much the same, but lots of others. There are many other edits and revisions. It's just the beginning that seems to be important for me.
Now I read somewhere you don't outline in advance. You kind of write by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, mostly. I'm trying to outline more. I would really, really like a better process where I know more what I'm doing. You know, I just fake it really well right now.
Okay. All right. Let's Yoon. These two are for you. Do you have, and I know we talked about this briefly, do you have a consistent approach to novel beginnings, or does your approach vary based on the story?
I would say there's a rough similarity, but it really depends on the specific novel. Each one has to sort of coalesce around a seed, and that seed is more like a mood, or I guess I would liken it to composing music, which is one of my hobbies. When I start writing a piece of music, I don't necessarily have here is the beginning, but I know what key I'm going to write in. I have a general sense of the harmonic progressions, and writing is really similar. I have a sense of what kinds of characters, what kind of plot, what kind of mood the story will have, but I won't necessarily have the beginning until I sit down and hash it out. And I think I'm very similar to Lisa in that, you know, I need to get the beginning really clear in my head before I can continue. And once I have it set, I usually don't mess with it a whole lot. So that part is pretty similar, but there's a lot of flailing, and the flailing does vary a lot from book to book.
Okay. The fourth question, what do you think makes a great starting point for a long story? This kind of relates to a question I had. So you both write, there's a lot of action in what you write, right?
Yes.
Things blow up.
So do you think it's important to start with action all the time?
I think it's important to start with action if that's what you're advertising the rest of your book is going to be. If you're writing a long, sort of, you know, dreamy, picaresque novel in which people have lots of tea and crumpets, then maybe don't start that with something blowing up.
But
Because that first chapter is telling the reader, this is the kind of book I am, and this is what you're making a promise to the reader. So if you're writing a book in which action is going to be one of the main attractions, then yes, start with action. But if not, any opening that draws the reader in is a good opening. And it doesn't have to be a slam bang, spaceship explodes kind of opening.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, now I have 2 questions for each of you, and then I'm going to turn it over to all of our listeners. So start writing your questions in the chat. Lisa,
Yes.
I know you graduated in math from MIT. How much do you identify with Cass Russell, who's a math genius, but she veers away from the logical stereotype that you kind of put with math geniuses because she goes with her instincts.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, the stereotype is totally wrong. Mathematicians are some of the most emotional people. If you, I think Yoon will back me up on this. If you read some math history, which math history is fascinating, you will read about some of the most off-the-wall personalities, and they're like all these like grudges and duels and like, you know, these long-term, you know, people being competitive with each other and, you know, trying to one-up each other and like getting really like upset about theorems. Like read up on when the axiom of choice like was sort of discovered and proved that it was needed to actually be one of the axioms. Like it's this, people get really emotional about it. Like, oh no, that can't be. This feels so wrong. Or Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Like people, you know, some of these things we accept now, or mathematicians, you know, who study them accept now. But you know, man, the history of math is littered with like super emotional people. But I actually get the question about Cass being similar to me a lot, probably because we both like math and guns. I kind of always laugh when I get this question, and I say, I really hope I kill a lot fewer people than she does. I mean, we're really not similar in personality in the sense that, you know, if somebody cuts me in line at Starbucks, I will snark about it on Twitter. If somebody cuts her in line at Starbucks, she will punch them in the face. You know, but that's really, it makes it fun to write.
Okay, all right. So how does she compare with the protagonist of your upcoming fantasy?
They're pretty dissimilar. They both are markswomen with protagonist of Burning Roses is going to be Little Red Riding Hood, except she's now middle-aged and is a rifle markswoman and also a recovering assassin, as Red Riding Hood is, of course. So, you know, there are a few small similarities, but in terms of personality, I think they're quite different. And my version of Little Red Riding Hood is certainly, I think, trying to be a much better human and has a family and stuff that she's trying to like reconcile with. So there's a bit more. She's a bit less of an outlier than Cassie.
Okay, Yoon. You write a lot of short fiction.
Yes, I I did that for a while.
Which are you more drawn to, the short or the long? And how do you, um, you know, when and how do you decide if it should be a short story or a novel?
Really the length of the plot tells me. If it's about a short, sharp event, then it can be a short story. If it's about somebody's long, drawn out character arc and there are three different villains and they're all maneuvering against each other on a chessboard, that's really, really hard to fit in a short story. That's going to be a novel. I have discovered that I spent 17 years publishing short stories and they are really fun and it's really nice to be able to finish something in 1 week instead of 6 months. But I have become kind of addicted to novels because you just have so much more space to explore the characters and their emotions and go along with them on their journey. So I find myself writing a lot fewer short stories now, also because novels take so much time. It's just inescapable.
Okay, we've got questions here. And I'm going to turn it over to you two now. So whoever is, all
Sounds
right.
good. I think the first question is my fault, Yoon. I tweeted that people could come ask you how many kel it takes to change a light bulb.
See,
And apparently,
this is my fault for like mentioning Kel jokes but not actually giving the answer. I figure it's at least two because one of the Kel has to give the order and the other one has to carry it out.
that makes sense. So for those in the Zoom who don't know, the Kel are a faction in Yoon's magnificent Machineries of Empire series, which if you scroll up to the top of the chat and click on the link, it's the Book Bungalow link specifically to support this indie bookstore who is hosting us. And you can order any of the Machineries of Empire books there, and they're a brilliant space opera. And the Kel is, would you call them a conformist military faction?
They're very conformist, yeah.
Very cool. I'm going to interject something here, which is that I've always been fascinated that you chose the Kel as like a central, like protagonist faction-ish to focus on, because that feels very like, I feel like I don't see that in American science fiction and fantasy a lot, where, and I didn't realize this till I lived overseas, but like American culture very much prioritizes like individualism and like being special as a value. Which isn't necessarily the case in other countries. Like good of the group can be valued just as much as individualism, if not more, other places. In fact, in my Japanese class, which is people from all over, when we learned about the concepts of individuality in Japan, they asked us in our country which was valued more, good of the individual or good of the group. And I was the only American in the class, and I was the only person who said that individualism was valued in my country. But it's I feel like it adds so much to the book, and I love that because it's not like it's preaching at us about something being right or wrong. There are people who are really valuing this and going for it, and obviously everybody in your books has many gray areas and stuff. It was just something I noticed. I don't know if that was intentional for you or
no,
or
it
not.
was definitely intentional because it was meant to be an Asian derived culture. And South Korea especially, they call it Neo-Confucianism, which can briefly be described as more Confucian than the Confucians. And so I wanted to get this idea of people who really valued the group more than the individual. And when my dad made his one attempt to read the book, he said that he could see the Asian influences in it. He also said, your books are incomprehensible, but
Oh my gosh.
No, I mean, because this is a older generation Asian man who has never read science fiction in his life trying to read science fiction. So, yeah, it was just hilarious.
I mean, I guess your books are maybe not the best entry level science fiction.
Yeah.
They're quite complicated, which is one of the things I love about them. They're such an amazing world you've built.
Lisa, I see a question that I think you can answer. When
When
writing fiction involving mathematics, do you try to present the mathematics accurately or realistically? Why or why not? I feel that you will have opinions about that.
Well, I try to portray the mathematics realistically, but for the most part, I mean, it depends what I'm writing, but certainly in the cast series and for the most part in general, I try to present it accessibly. Which maybe means not getting like too crunchy with it. I actually had one reader, I love this story, who was disappointed that there are no formulas in my book. And I said, I'm sorry, you're disappointed. But I actually do all of the math in my books because it's fun and I'm a nerd. But I will spend the entire afternoon doing like this, complicated physics calculation, and it'll end up like 3 lines in the novel of texture, So I do try to do it realistically or accurately and realistically, but I don't want to. I'm not writing the type of books where it's the point of the book or it's going to overwhelm the narrative. I more want to share the emotional delight I find in mathematics, I think. How about yourself?
I took a much looser approach because when I set out to write Nine Fox Gambit, I pulled out my abstract algebra textbooks and I was going to sit down and I was going to make this entire warfare, kind of a game engine, really, an abstract algebra game engine. And my husband took me aside and said, Yoon, don't do it. Don't do it. And it's not that he's afraid of math, because my husband got his doctorate in astrophysics from MIT. So he's better at math than I am, but he's also a science fiction reader. And he knew that most science fiction readers don't want to sit there crunching numbers. So he said, okay, I'm just going to give you the feeling of what it feels like to me to do a math proof or to do a math computation. That sort of emotional journey of, I don't know what's going on. Oh, I have this insight. Here's the proof, and I am going to sort of turn my way towards it. So I wanted to get that sort of feeling of it and a little bit of the terminology. My agent and I actually have this joke that Nine Fox Gambit got turned down by 20 publishers because I used the word diagonalization. Like they saw that one word and they said, there's too much math in this book. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no math, like math in Nine Fox Gambit at all. It's all hand waving. So yeah.
But I think you nail that feeling though. Like me as a reader reading it, like I definitely get that. And I know you have a lot of readers who are not math people, as I do as well. And one of my favorite things is when people come up to me and say, like, I'm not a math person. And they're always apologizing. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And they say, but I love your book. And that's one of my favorite things too, because I want to share that feeling that you're talking about with people. And the joy of math. Yay.
Yes.
That was Yoon's cat, by the way.
Yes, my cat Cloud, who has been wandering about this study.
Also promised on Twitter, meeting Yoon's cat. Big draw. So I think there's a question for you about Dragon Pearl I saw.
Question for you.
Oh, go ahead, Tanya.
Question for you from BJ Cav. Many readers I speak to are fascinated by Rio. How did you develop this character, and any hints where you're taking his relationship with Kaz?
Yes, my sociopathic serial killer, who's everybody's favorite character.
A++.
Thank you. Yes, my main character, Cass, probably her best friend, I guess, when the series starts, is a psychopathic serial killer who basically has like no emotions and no conscience. But he has a moral compass, so he's got a code. And let's see, what was the question? How did you develop this character, and any hints where you're taking his relationship with Cass? How did I develop him? I really like characters who are who have some sort of difficulty with emotion. I've always loved that character archetype, the Spock, the Data. I wrote these 3 fantasies when I was in college that were terrible and will never see the light of day, and I had a woman in that, same thing, like, but science fictionally, having these ridiculous difficulties with emotion. Like, a lot of projects I do have that archetype character in them. I also really like writing characters who can, get into mayhem and kill a lot of people. But then, there's got to be push and pull to that, right? It can just be you can have just a mass murderer, but it's more fun to have a mass murderer with a code, and and my character's code, in this case Rio's code, is a religious one. And he's very equanimous about it, like very calm, and he just follows it, and he knows exactly what his moral system is, such as it is. And where am I taking the relationship with Cass? Oh, that's a good question, and I don't think I can answer it without, spoiling future books. But there is a plan, and he's not her father. I get that question so often. Like, is he Cass's father? I'm like, no, this is not Star Wars. We're not doing that. So I'll give that away. You are nodding along with me. I know you have your own sociopathic characters as well, which is perhaps one reason I'm.
I have a type. We both have a type.
Yeah. I did see a Dragon Pearl question that was a little bit above that one. Will Yoon and Dragon Pearl come back to life? We are fans of him.
Oh, I wish I could say yes, but there are no Korean stories I'm aware of where the mythology says we can resurrect people. That's not a thing. There are definitely ghosts though, and he will definitely still play a part.
Oh, that's nice. So Dragon Pearl's having a sequel, right? Is there like news on that you can share?
I should be working on it faster than I actually am, except for coronavirus. So Min will appear in the sequel, but it's going to be about a non-binary tiger cadet.
Ooh.
And their adventures or misadventures, as the case may be. But basically, they end up in a situation where they have to sabotage a ship except someone beats them to it, and then suddenly they have to survive. I just like blowing things up. I mean, some people ask me, where do you get your inspiration for novels? And they're expecting me to say War and Peace or something. And I'm like, no, it's video games.
Nice.
I just blow things up.
Well, it's fun to read too.
I see one about the Vela. Was writing the Vela any different than it would have been during quarantine? I read that the writers collaborated via Slack. I think the summit where they got us together in New York City would not have been able to happen.
Yeah, agreed.
And we got so much work done. So basically, Serial Box had the system where they would fly us all out to New York City and put us up in hotels, and they would crack the whip and have us in an office and get us to hash out the novel. The serialized novel and all its plot. And so we got a ton of work done in those 2.5 days. And then we followed up via Slack. Do you have any sense as to how that would have turned out differently now?
That's a good question. I'm betting we would have had a summit through Zoom or something like this, because I don't think we could replace that. That was such an intense 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Like the collaborative process was amazing. It was us two and also Becky Chambers and River Solomon, who are brilliant authors.
Yep.
And we were just building on each other, nonstop for hours and hours each day. So yeah, I agree with you on that. We have, please give us some teasers for Phoenix Extravagant.
Phoenix Extravagant has a non-binary painter who just wants to get along in their life, except they live in fake Korea during the fake Japanese occupation, because world building is hard and I'm lazy, so I decided to just do a version of real history. And there was also a personal reason behind that. I'm Korean. My grandparents lived through the Japanese occupation of Korea, which took place from 1910 to 1945. And actually, one of my grandfathers was a collaborator. He went to university in Tokyo. So I expect to be disowned by about half my family when this book comes out. But It's about what it's like to be in that position where, you're in an occupied country and you want to make a living, and you happen to run into an intelligent mechanical dragon and you want to fight against the evil empire. So it does have some basis in history, and then part of it is just mechanical dragons and painting. I wanted to write about a painter.
That sounds amazing. I'm really looking forward to this. When's it coming out again?
It is coming out in October. The original release date was June, and then the publisher looked at the pandemic and said, we're going to try to delay this book and see if that helps it out a bit.
That's probably a good plan. The third cast book, Critical Point, just came out 2 weeks ago, and releasing a book during a pandemic's pretty rough. It's been
I can imagine.
Many thanks to the Book Bungalow and other places who are hosting us virtually. This has been amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely different, and we're all sort of learning.
Lisa, novels let you tell a whole story instead of a tiny piece of one. How long does it take to write a novel? What part of the writing process do you struggle the most with?
Oh my gosh, all of it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, writing is hard. But let's see. How long does it take me to write a novel? It really depends on the novel. I wish I had an algorithmic process that was reliable and would always, I would put input and then get an output. There are some novels I struggle with a lot more than others. I would say first draft, and my first drafts are usually pretty clean. Oh gosh. Yeah, this is so hard to answer. My shortest has been 2 weeks, which is one
Oh,
of
wow.
the fantasies in college that I will never publish. Lately, I've written one that was like 2 months, but then longest has been like a few years when if I wasn't working on it full time and, was going back and forth with other stuff. But I think 6 months to a year, probably, maybe for something that if it's something I don't have a lot of experience with, or it's going to be more complicated, maybe a year to 2 years, but it would really depend on the book. And what part of the writing process do I struggle most with? There's this point in every novel, because I'm a pantser, where I feel like I've taken apart the car engine on the garage floor, and there's like nuts and bolts everywhere and springs everywhere, and I have to put it all back together somehow. And I don't know how. I've completely lost any instructions. And I know that even if I do get it back together, there'll be all these pieces that are left over, and I don't know where they go, or if the engine's going to blow up when I turn it on. And somehow it always does end up coming together, at least so far, fingers crossed. So apparently, I am eventually able to get there, but it does, that moment is sort of probably about the half to 2/3 mark of the novel is where I am always feeling that way pretty consistently.
I feel like your process must have like the significant intuitive component where you just have to trust your back brain and let go. I mean, I experienced something. I'm not a pantser as much as you are, but I do get to that point in the novel where it's like I am really stuck and I don't know where to go. And at that point, I know I just have to walk away. I would do the same thing with my math problem sets back in college.
Ooh.
Like they would give us, prove these theorems, and I would look at it and I would bang my head against it for 3 hours, and then I would walk away for 3 days. And then when I would come back, the answers would be there in my head. It was freaky as hell. It was freaky as heck, but it just always worked, and I could not explain it. I don't know what my brain was doing in there while I was off playing video games or washing the dishes, but somewhere it was working on those problems.
That's absolutely happened to me with math, and I love that analogy, and I'm going to start thinking about it that way. Thank you. Cool. Yeah. Wow. All right. There's somebody was asking about reposting the info in the chat. Was that the bookshop links? They're still there for me. Can people not see the bookshop links anymore?
I don't see them, so maybe it would hurt to.
Okay, I am going to repost the bookshop link here, and this is if you go and buy our books through this link, you will.
Don't do the top one. Do the second one.
Yep, I got it.
No.
And it will be let's see, send chat to everyone. You'll be supporting the Book Bungalow. This is their bookshop.org list, bookshop.org list of links. So this is going, the sales are going directly to them. So that's the link to use for this event. And I hope that's what you were asking about. All right, where were we in the chat here? Let's see. See if I can find it. Let's see. For Yoon, my name is Jamie, and I'm a gay Puerto Rican trans guy currently going to Cornell, A&S, best college. I assume that means arts and sciences.
Yes.
And to be honest, I really, really look up to you. Oh, that's so nice. I look up to you too. I guess that's not much of a question, but your books are really important to me and inspire me with my own writing. Seeing your work makes me feel really hopeful that someone like me can put my stories out in the world too. Maybe my biggest question is, since I'm really trying hard to query a novel right now, would you have any advice for me?
I would say, well, first thing is write the best novel you can write. Second thing is write the best query you can write. And I know this sounds very, very generic, but there are places where you can find workshops, or sometimes agents on Twitter will give feedback on queries. So if you look for examples of good queries and get feedback specifically on your query letter from people who are in the industry, that should be helpful. I'm sorry, it's really hard to be more specific without knowing more about your specific novel and your specific query, but I think there are absolutely opportunities for more types of voices to be heard right now in publishing. And there's definitely room out there for your story. So keep writing and keep querying.
That was
Lisa,
an awesome exchange, just gonna say.
would love to hear about your different journeys and approaches to self and traditional publishing.
Wow. Okay. So I self-published first, and now I'm traditionally publishing with Tor Books, and they're very different. I would say self-publishing, one of the things that's most complicated about it is that it changes really, really fast. Like what was true in 2011, 2012, when I first started researching it seriously, was an entirely different landscape from when I first published in 2014, which is an entirely different landscape to today. And it's, I would say that I'm not that good at self-publishing in the sense of, I was good at putting out a professional product, and that was, well written and well packaged, and, good covers and, professional, etc. I'm really not good at all the marketing aspects. You have to wear so many hats as a self-publisher. You're not just the writer, you're also the publisher, publicist, marketer, everything. And it wasn't even so much that I was not good at it, but it was very emotionally draining for me, which is one of the reasons I'm very glad to be with a publisher now, where I have brilliant support and brilliant publicists who, take a lot of that emotional and technical workload from me and do a much, much better job at it than I ever could. So I would say one of the biggest feelings that's different is being part of a team. And it turns out I like that much more. And I feel like I could have learned to self-publish better. And I probably will still self-publish some things in the future, just because, as a writer, sometimes, different approaches work better. But it's because it changes so fast. It was just an extremely tiring experience for me. And self-publishing also sort of requires more rapid release. A lot of self-publishers release every few months or so, and I am not that fast a writer. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. There's a lot there that's different.
Do you foresee going back to self-publishing?
If I have something that's not a fit for traditional publishing, I'm glad it's there. But I foresee that from now on, traditional publishing would be my mainstay, just because it speaks to what's suited best for me as a writer. It's not that I think one is better than the other. Some authors are really well suited to self-publishing because that's just the way that they work and the things that they like to do and are good at. But yeah, I think for me, working with a publisher has been a great experience. And that's also down to the people. Like my editor at Tor, Diana Gill, for until now has been extremely amazing. And like I said, my publicist and all the support I have there, my agent, everybody has been just a great, incredible team.
How did you make the shift?
I got picked up from self-publishing. Zero Sum Game was initially self-published and got picked up by Tor. And that is not something I recommend, by the way. It is like threading a needle to try to get picked up from self-publishing. Do not do that as a plan. That wasn't my plan. It was meant to be self-published forever. But it was very, it's very hard to get published that way. It's much better to go the route of traditional publishing first and querying and agent. All right, we have a lot of questions in the chat that I have not tried to skim that. Let's see, from Logan, for Yoon, will you give Cloud a pat from your fans? And a bunch of people saying same, aw, Cloud, cat in. Everybody loves the cat. Hi, Cloud.
She has opinions. She mostly wants to sit on my ARCs. of other people's books
Oh.
because cats read through their butts. That's great by sitting on things.
All right. Let's see.
The question for both. You see that one?
Yeah. Somebody's asking both of us, how do you pin down character quote unquote voices? Do you ever talk to characters in your head, or is it more of a strictly writing thing?
I don't talk to my characters, but I know that a book is ready to be written when little bits of dialogue in the character's voice start floating to my head, and then I have to grab a notebook or my iPad and write them down. And it's telling me that this character is ready to start talking to me. And of course I edit them because I'm the writer and I'm boss, but that's how I do it. How about you, Lisa?
I don't talk to them, but I do hear them. I
Mhm.
hear voices in my head. Yes. But it reminds me of, I've done a lot of theater in my life. I was an actor all growing up, and it reminds me of running lines or working on a play where I'm hearing the voices going in my head and hearing the scene. But I also have that the same approach as you, where I'm the boss, so I will sometimes lay down the law and dictate. They can't trump me no matter how hard they try.
My husband says if my characters ever come to life, they will come after me and kill me. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing that doesn't happen, right? Right?
My sister claims that her cat hates me because I'm a murderer, because I kill characters. Like this is this is her claim. We have somebody saying, I'm so excited for the non-binary tiger with many exclamation points, and somebody else
Yay.
agreeing, and somebody else agreeing. Yes. Let's see.
What are your favorite video games? Lisa, do you play video games? I can't remember.
I play some, but I'm not very caught up in I haven't played seriously in a while just because I haven't had a lot of time. I would say most of my favorite video games have been social experiences. So for example, with my stunt buddies, we used to like work out and then play Halo, which sounds really like dude bro when I say it out loud.
No, I learned about Halo from my sister. So, there are women who love Halo. It should be a thing.
Well, I love it, especially the sword. That was always my favorite. But I love playing like with other people. That's something I always feel like I get more out of the experience. How about you?
I'm really behind on, I don't play Twitch games anymore because I don't have the reflexes to do it. But I play Flight Rising, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a game mostly for younger people, right? Or it's aimed towards younger people. So you have these dragons and you breed them and you sacrifice dragon babies for money. And
what?
No, I'm not making this up. Like it's part of how the economy runs, because like if you keep breeding dragons, you run out of lair space. And so the mechanism for getting rid of these unwanted dragon babies is to exalt them to the dragon gods. But really you're sacrificing dragon babies for money.
It's like Tiger King except dragons. Oh my gosh. Save the dragon
and then
babies.
you breed them for different colors and you can collect the pretty ones and you can level them up. And I don't know. The only reason I'm playing this game is that when my daughter was like, when my daughter was 10 years old, she got super into this game because that was the phase when, she only wanted to read books that had dragons in them. She only wanted to play games that had dragons in them. So she was like, play this game with me. And now she's 16. She's completely over this game, does not play it anymore. But like, if you don't feed your dragons every day, they start to starve. So I'm emotionally unable to let go of this game. So
are you at the age bracket where you remember Tamagotchis?
Oh my God, yes. It's that exact thing. Like they get their hooks into you.
For anyone who is not of the particular generation to remember this, Tamagotchis were a toy fad, and it was a little like electronic pet. And but you had to like feed it and care for it. And I never had one, but my sister did. And like everybody would get hooked on these. They'd be taking care of their Tamagotchis all the time, and like teachers would be taking them away. Because if you didn't take care of it, it died, and you couldn't have your Tamagotchi die. All right, let's let's see, back to the chat. What do we think would happen if Cheris and Cass met?
I think Cass would probably punch Cheris at some point.
I'm wondering which of them is better at math.
Cass is faster. Cheris is not as fast. She doesn't do it on the fly. And when she does do it on the fly, she uses computers.
That's true, yeah.
My sister made me write out the part where Cheris was using a computer algebra system because she's like, no, people want geniuses who can do it all in their heads. If you use a computer, it's not glamorous. And I'm like, but this is how mathematicians actually work.
It's true. It's so like, taking the magic out of it. But she has the fantasy aspects from your books where math brings this like all this other calendrical like magic into play, right? So I don't know. I think she'd win.
I think Cass would be terrifying if she moved to the Hexarchet, though. Like, she could set up her own little like fiefdom.
All right, let's see. Okay, more yelling about cats. I'm seeing. Sorry, I'm scrolling fast. So, Tamagotchis were the best. Also, so annoying. Yes, they were. Let's see. Ebooks or paper? I think I missed it, but I'll scroll back up.
I like ebooks for fiction because my house has only so much bookshelf space, and I keep having to call books because we keep running out. But for nonfiction, I know this is heretical and people really hate it when I say this, but if it's a nonfiction book on like game design or linguistics or math or whatever, I actually write in my books. And for some reason, that tactile feeling of being able to flip through a book and mark it up and bend it to my will and make use of it really helps me with nonfiction.
I do too. I started this in college and it felt really wrong to me at first, but like highlighting my math textbooks, I still have them on my shelf, like full of my notes and stuff. But I am, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say I really love it when I pick up a used book and it has all these little personal notes in the side and I can get this glimpse into what someone else was thinking as they were reading the book.
It is cool. I really like reading fiction on paper, though, I have to admit. I have the same space problem. When I was a child, I would spend all of my allowance on books, and my mom actually forbid me from having another bookshelf in my room because she was legit afraid my floor would fall through. And I defied this by double stacking my books and stacking against the back of my dresser and stuff. And I would have, like, I had all the Star Wars tie-ins, so I'd make a flat shelf out of them and then like another layer on top. So I still like ended up with the same number of books. My floor was okay, but she might have had a point. But I don't know, I prefer, there's something about, I feel like I can't have the same attention when I'm reading on a screen somehow.
Also, I have to tell you, one of the most demoralizing ebook reading experiences I ever had was when I think I checked out Storm of Swords or something from the library, and I was reading it on an iPod Touch. And let me tell you, there's nothing as demoralizing as seeing that you are on page 17 out of 600,272, or however many pages it turned it to on a tiny little iPod Touch screen. I'm never going to finish this book. I know it, like, intellectually, I knew it was the same length, but just because it was that many more pages.
All right, let's see. We have from a fellow math fan and advocate of writing in books. What are your favorite subjects in math, and how does this impact your writing? Have you had to learn new subjects while working on novels and stories?
I stand for abstract algebra.
I were better at abstract algebra. It is sadly one of my weakest, like, higher level math subjects. I'm much better at like computational stuff.
I really liked the fact that it had all these tie-ins to crypto because cryptology is so cool.
Cryptology is so cool. I have had to learn a lot of physics and applied math, which is not what I studied at all. Like, I would say 90% of what Cass does in my books, I have to look things up because I don't know the math of bomb explosions. Like, that's not something they taught us at MIT.
Really? I mean, they don't teach you about bomb explosions at MIT? You should tell them to change their curriculum.
Not that I can talk about. You know, there are some secrets to the nitrogen and the calculus that cannot be revealed.
Aren't you doing something with knot theory?
Beg your pardon?
Aren't you doing something with knot theory?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. We've had to table that
For
project.
us, I'm a layman. I have no.
Yeah. Yoon and I were working on a collaboration that would be based in knot theory, and hopefully we will be able to get back to it someday.
Yeah.
I hope so anyway.
Me too.
Let's see. Lots of math nerd solidarity. I love this.
Yes, I approve of this.
Agreed.
Do both of you think you could quantify the amount of active research you did for your novels?
I'm one of those writers who has to put a lid on the amount of research I do because I will use it to procrastinate. I love researching for books and I will just keep clicking, even though, you know, maybe nobody cares if this street was named something else before 1985 in suburban Los Angeles, you know. It's really hard to say, honestly. I sort of do it as it comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of fooling around on Wikipedia that I do when I come across a question. I came across a question for Phoenix Extravagant where I dealt with the fact that this is quote unquote very early 20th century technology, but in Asia, and I wanted to know how did they pack their ceramics to make sure that they didn't break in transit?
It's questions like that, yeah.
It's like they couldn't have been using styrofoam, and people were telling me things like wheat straw, and I'm like, they don't grow wheat in Korea, so I can't use, like they were giving me European answers to and to a question I had about Asian history, and it turns out that they used rice straw.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing that you find yourself looking up. I guess there's a lot of reading that I do. I love reading nonfiction in general, and I will read widely. So I'll read about linguistics, and I'll read about music theory and musicology and physics and germs and whatever, and it all just sort of finds its way into the book. But it's not actively, you know, I don't actively set out and say I am going to research X thing. I just read things that I find interesting and they find their way into my stories.
Oh, that's really cool. I had the experience once where I was writing a short story, and I'm very lazy, and you know I don't like doing a lot of extra work for my books. And it was contemporary science fiction, so our world. And I was doing, the story was about, the sci-fi conceit was deep brain stimulation, which is, it's a way of treating mental health issues that is quite new, and we don't know a lot about it yet, but it has worked a little, and it's electrically stimulating the brain in ways that have shown great success with people who have had like extremely intractable difficulties with their mental health. And I asked a friend of mine who's you know, an academic in neurobiology. I sat him down. I said, "Hey, I'm writing the science fiction story. It's supposed to be hard science fiction. What can you tell me about deep brain stimulation?" And he was like, "I know a lot about it. What do you need?" And I said, "Well, I just want to know where we are with the research so that I can make sure to write this plausibly." And he said, "You can write whatever you want. We have no idea why it works. We have no idea where it's going." And I love stuff like that because then, you know, I can really just go with the sci-fi, and as long as it sounds plausible, it's all good. All right. I know we had more questions. If I'm scrolling up, let's see. Would you ever consider writing an appendix or something with a deeper exploration of the math in your books?
I would have to go back and reread my math textbooks because it's been 20 years since I got my degree, and this is not something I do in my daily, everyday life. So only if you paid me, really, because it would be a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm with you right there. I also have quite a bit of anxiety about somebody finding a mistake, like a math mistake in my book.
Yep.
So if I wrote the actual clear mathematics, it would be a lot more obvious if I made an error somewhere. So
I know, that's why I like hand waving, because if you don't tell them what the equation is, they can't tell you got it wrong.
that's true. That's so smart. Oh my God.
Have you ever considered adapting your works for interactive mediums like video, tabletop games, or role-playing games?
Ooh. I would love my stuff to be
Sorry,
adapted to
cat
games.
hit it.
Not my call, unfortunately, or at least
Mm.
hasn't been to this point. If if I got approached about that, I would be like, yes, let's do this. Let's figure it out. I'd be all over that.
Yeah, same here. I am actually doing narrative consulting for a video game company right now, and what I am getting from them is that making a video game is really, really, really hard work involving a lot of people coordinating together. It's not something that I could like casually make Nine Fox Gambit the Call of Duty. You know, like I couldn't do that by myself. That's not possible. If someone approached my agent, then I would completely be for it. But you know, that's not up to me.
I love remixes and adaptations. Like
Yeah.
I am not precious about my work. I want to see it expanded and have fun things done with it. Somebody was asking me about a short story above, and now I cannot find it at all. And I'm so sorry that I lost that question.
Short story.
I feel like it might be gone. Sorry if we've been missing your questions. We're sort of going fast while we're also talking while we're also watching the chat. So
Multitasking.
yes. I'm not sure if we're running how long we're running. If it's going to be an hour, then we are almost to the end of the hour. And so please ask your questions.
Lisa, I think someone found it. As the last I may know, is the embodiment of the human cost of nuclear weapons in an individual interrelated with your thoughts about cultural differences between valuing collectivism and individuality?
Oh God, it was not at all culturally. Like I did not ever. That's interesting because we were having that discussion just now. Yeah, I was not thinking about that at all. I was more, you know what they say about like one death is a tragedy, 1,000 deaths is a statistic. Just trying to wrap my head around that, and having gone to I went to both atomic bomb museums in Japan, and they while I was living there, and it wrecked me for like 3 days, as of course it would. And then shortly thereafter, I went to the Nanjing Museum, the Nanjing Massacre Museum in Nanjing, China, and all the complexities and the senselessness and war and nuclear weapons. Like before I went to those museums in Japan, I intellectually understood what nuclear weapons can do, but I did not emotionally understand it. And I'm not part of the generation that grew up with drills hiding under my desk. I'm part of the generation that grew up where nuclear weapons were our fun apocalypse causing, plot devices, where, we would use them in our science fiction stories to cause our dystopias and stuff, or like to blow spaceships apart in Battlestar Galactica. And I didn't quite understand how like the Death Star level of tragedy in an emotional way before that. And I wanted to try to capture that. I was standing in my hotel room after going to the one in Hiroshima and looking out at the city. And, today Hiroshima has a population of over 1 million people. And just looking out at the streets and the people after seeing the devastation of the entire city being gone. And while at the same, it's a lot. And I don't have any answers, and I don't have any answers about World War II in general. Having my family lived through it in China, they were not terribly affected. But it's all basically the complicated mess of like grief and tragedy and not understanding humanity in my head, I was trying to put on the page there.
Mm.
All right, let's see. A lighthearted question, a Cornell type question, and I might mispronounce some of these factions, sorry. Which Hex Arcade faction would most align with Hoteli's hotel school? In my heart, I feel it's Narai.
I don't know. The Nerai are like the engineers. I feel like it would be the Andan because they're the fashionistas. They're into fashion and high culture, and also they're the rich people. Sorry, one of my roommates' friends in my freshman year of Cornell was a hotelier, and she was a really lovely human being. But she also had been given. She was from. Anyway, she had been given a racehorse for her 16th birthday. So
Oh my
this was
goodness.
like a level of money that like I don't comprehend, right? Me with my student loans. And she was like, well, I mean, it's not that bad. The racehorse still has to earn enough for its upkeep. And I'm sitting there going, but most of us don't get racehorses for our 16th birthday. So
Wow.
it was my first encounter with that level of personal wealth, I guess.
I've had a few friends who are extremely, wealthy from birth, not, people who came to it later in life. And it's funny that sometimes it's just like different assumptions, they extremely nice people who are extremely caring and sympathetic, but sometimes, there's just that like mismatch of, oh, you've never had to think about this in your life. I see.
Yeah.
I understand. I would love to write super wealthy characters just because it can be really fun. But I feel like I need to nail that, like the
yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's see. Do we have more questions? Anybody? Because we can also just, chat and ask each other questions. Crazy Rich Asians.
Minutes to do that.
Crazy Rich Asians in Space. I would watch that. I wouldn't write it, but I would watch it.
Same. I'm bad at romance, unfortunately. I would like to be better.
Oh, I'm terrible at romance. I keep trying to write romantic storylines and they either end in tragedy, as you may have noticed, or people are like, no, this is totally not convincing. I set out to write a romance story for a writing class at Cornell, and I did it wrong because I was trying to subvert everything. So the hero and the heroine didn't even end up together. So by definition, it was not romance. And I thought I was being so clever, but instead I just completely did not understand the genre.
That sounds like how I end up writing romances, and like somebody will always die or something, and it's like, no, this is not, no. I have a question for you, which is, I am super impressed by your ability to compose music. That is something that just seems like impossible to me. But I wanted to ask what instruments you've studied or played or enjoy, and more importantly, did you grow up on the Suzuki method? Because I feel like
I actually came late to the Suzuki method. So I started on piano. I had 7 years of piano. I then learned viola, and viola I did get some Suzuki method, and I got soprano recorder because everybody does in elementary school. I taught myself how to play harmonica, and then I also played classical guitar for a while.
oh
But
my God.
these days, it's really hard to, like, I lost my viola in a flood in 2016. So these days, all my composing is on the computer, which means that you can spend lots of money on sampled orchestras, but then you have an entire orchestra at your fingertips. And this is actually something that I think is really cool about composing music today, is that the cost of getting into electronic music is much less than it used to be. So it can still be expensive, but if you want to write electronica, there are tons of free synths. You sign up with a free DAW, digital audio workstation, and then you can just go to town. Like, it makes creating music accessible to so many more people.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
How about the last question there?
Okay.
What is the Queer Asian SFF Illuminati and how do I join?
That was, there were a few of us in SciFi who are all queer and Asian. And I'm not sure if it's still like a thing. But somebody was like, "This is going to be a group. We're going to call ourselves this." I shouldn't divulge this. The High School of the Queer Asian SFF Illuminati is that you do not talk about the Queer Asian SFF Illuminati.
Okay, well, I think we're about at an end. I apologize to those of you that I admitted late. I believe I'm recording this session, so I'm hoping to have a link that I can send to all of you if you want to replay it. If you missed.
I'm going to post the bookshop.org link again. As many thanks to our hosts, the Book Bungalow.
Yes, thank you so much.
And if you click that link, you will be able to support them and buy our books through them because yay, technology.
Yes, thank you again. And oh, one final note, I have all of you who registered for this, I kept your email addresses as science fiction or fantasy fans. If you would like me to delete those emails, because if we do future events, I'd rather let you know about it. But if you'd rather I delete it, let me know. Shoot me an email and say, take me off the list, okay? Anyway, thank you so much, Lisa and Yoon. And
our pleasure. And oh, everybody's so nice in the chat. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, well, goodbye, everybody.